Right. I'm going to build some scenery. Um, I haven't done this for a long time, and I don't know why I did this. It was kind of one of those on a whim kind of thing. I've done this before in the past, and I thought, I've not done that for a while. I'll make something. So that's the only reason this exists. So right up front, I want to say I used to paint like the Games Workshop fantasy miniature type stuff. And even if I say so myself, I was pretty good. And I was terrible at building scenery. I'm not a gamer, by the way. I'm not a tabletop gamer or anything like that. I play computer games, but I was never any kind of war gamer at all. I just liked painting stuff and making stuff. So right up front, I want to say I was absolutely terrible at making scenery. And there's a YouTube channel called Luke's APS, and that channel, that guy Luke, taught me everything you're going to see here. Um, all right, 90% of what you're going to see here. But the point is, I owe all this to Luke. Go and check out his channel if you're at all interested. He will show you how to do this stuff in detail. This is not a tutorial. I'm literally just at a bash because I haven't done it for a long time, and I just thought, oh, I'll film it, and then I'm doing a bit of a voiceover for it. So yeah, let's get on with it. Okay, so start off with a piece of wood. I basically just sawed this off just a random piece of wood I had hanging around in my garage. It's 30 centimeters square, give or take. You'll see that I do a lot of this kind of just
some big chunks. Polystyrene.
I don't measure anything. Let's
put
put it
that
that
way.
Making
it.
So
we'll just start.
The next thing I need to do is get some expanded polystyrene. At this point, I have no idea what.
I don't really want to go out of the bounds
of the
base.
What I'm basically saying with those hand movements is that I need this, whatever I put on the wood, to not go outside the bounds of the edges of the wood. Basically,
you have to be really careful with this, to be honest.
Dimensions of the wood. So all this is expanded polystyrene. It's some packaging that was probably had a microwave oven in it or something like that. And I'm just cutting it into chunks and trying to see what fits. But I don't have a plan at this point. I know like the outline of what shape I'm going to make, or what thing I'm going to end up with. But what it's actually going to end up with, I don't know at this point. And that'll come back and haunt me later, the fact that I didn't plan this in any way, shape or form. So this is PVA glue. Just get some on there and stick the polystyrene on. As you can see, I didn't spend a heck of a lot of time looking for exactly the right piece or anything like that. I wouldn't always use PVA glue for this, to be honest. I usually use like decorator's cork, mostly because it's easy to manage and it dries very quickly. But during the making this video, I was not under any time constraints, so I would do something, and when it needed to dry, I just left it till the next day. Or in some cases, I think like a whole week passes, because I was just doing it whenever I had, whenever I felt like doing it, to be honest. And it's all filmed on my phone, so there's the filming. Oh, nice shot of my bald head there. So the filming's not great. The angles are a bit weird. I do move the phone around and try and give you a clue about about the angles and show you what I'm doing. But for this, I'm just literally trimming and sticking down bits of polystyrene. No real plan. I'm just seeing what goes where. Some music while you... In fact, what I ought to do is just speed this bit up, shouldn't I? I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here we go. 5 times the speed. Crikey, I'm quick. Um, yeah, as I say, cut some bits of polystyrene up, stick them down. It's not rocket science, is it? Um, all I'm doing is getting polystyrene that has expanded polystyrene, that is, that has a nice flat edge on one side and a smooth sort of side that I can stick down. That's about my entire criteria. Does it fit in the space I have available? And this is just scrap of wood with a big groove in the bottom. Um, and then I stuck some odd bits on top of other bits just to break up the shape. And that's literally all of the thinking. So at this point, I still don't know what I'm making. I know what no, I know what I'm making, but I don't know what it looks like. And when I put this polystyrene down, it started to make sense in my head. I was kind of thinking, okay, I'm starting to see a sort of something emerge here, a shape emerge, and which is why I'm trimming bits out again now, because I thought this is where I'm starting to think, hang on, I can see where this is going, if you like. So yeah, not much more I can say, except I filled in the groove a little bit with some more expanded polystyrene. Total cost of this so far is nothing. But of course, it looks like a dog's dinner. It's like, yeah, great. It should cost nothing because it doesn't look like anything. Okay, right. So what I need to now is go away and okay. So quickly, I lost one of my videos, which is nice, one of the clips. So what I did here is I ran over all of the polystyrene with a chef's torch, just to burn it, which basically just stops it being flat and takes off any sharp edges. Um, so that's why it looks a little bit blackened in places. I didn't do it right there on the table. I took it outside and did it because burning styrene is a bad idea. Basically, don't breathe it in. So I went outside, ran over it with a chef's torch, and it basically just smooths out the pointy edges, I guess, for want of a better word. Um, so yeah, so there you go. Again, quickly, you'll see me messing about with a lot of white hard blocks, and they're basically plaster casts that I made of rocks out of my garden. I literally got latex rubber, painted it on a rock out of my garden. Um, Over the course of a week, layers and layers and layers till I ended up with a nice thick mold, poured in plaster of Paris, popped out basically a plaster rock. Um, and you'll see what I do with those later, and I'll keep explaining that to you. The video's going faster than I can talk, so I need to explain what on earth I'm doing. Okay, this section is a lot longer, so I'll explain what's going on, and then I'll probably speed it up later. So this stuff, there's a product called Sculptor Mode, and it's basically paper in plaster. Um, so in this case, plaster of Paris, but it's got paper in it. Now, sculptor mold rather, is not cheap. So Luke from Luke's APS has a video on how to make your own, and that's what I did. So what this is a toilet roll, a nice new fluffy toilet roll, ripped to pieces, soaked in water, then I put the food blender on it. Don't tell my wife any of this. put it through the food blender till it was totally shredded, and then you squeeze out as much water out of the toilet roll as possible, and you put it in the oven to dry it back out. So you end up with this mangled mess of fluffy paper, and then you dump a load of plaster of Paris in with it. Like I say, go to Luke's APS if you want to see him actually make it. So here you basically get some, and it dries really quick, this stuff, because plaster of Paris goes off so quickly. So I'm mixing some water in it, and you end up with that, which looks like the worst porridge ever. Like cottage cheese kind of consistency. It's, by the way, kids, don't put your hands in plaster of Paris. Wear gloves. Get some marigolds or whatever. Marigolds are rubber gloves in the UK. I don't know if they are everywhere else. Anyway, get some plastic gloves, some rubber gloves, and use those. This stuff is not good for your skin. Um, I'm just one of those stupid people that ignores things like gloves. Um, so you put the water in, and then you get it to the right consistency. So what I've done so far, all I've got here is the expanded polystyrene, and I've got some plaster rocks. I'm doing air quotes here. Um, and then what I need to do is this sculptor mode. Like I say, it's paper and plaster of Paris and water, and that's all there is to it. I'm basically covering all of the polystyrene. In fact, I'm covering eventually the whole model in this stuff. Um, it's nice and squidgy and cold and just great fun. But like I say, it goes off very quickly, so you only have a limited amount of time, which is why what I've done is I've mixed only a certain amount. Um, and then those plaster rocks, like I say, I literally made um, sculptor mold will stick to that stuff. I mean, sculptor mold, frankly, will stick to anything. Don't get it on your clothes. If you're going to do any of this, get some old decorating clothes out of the drawer, because you'll just ruin whatever you're wearing. Another thing that I tend to not do and get in trouble. So, yeah. So what I'm doing here is literally covering all of that polystyrene so you don't see it anymore, because the polystyrene is just there to bulk out bits of the model that I want to have bulked out. It's cheap, it's free, um, and it's light, and it's easy to cut, and it's easy to stick, and it's just, very easy to work with. Um, so I'm I'm chucking in all of this plaster and paper. The paper and the plastic gives it a nice strength. So when this stuff dries, and it will take a while, I probably just wandered off for a couple of days and came back. Um, it's like concrete. Literally, you could really bruise your knuckles on it trying to knock on it, but it will glue in. It will hold in all of that plaster, all those plaster rocks. So I'm making some scenery. So this is, of course, is going to be like a hillside. So the rocks are coming out of the ground. So I'm keeping this in mind as I'm doing this, and I'm overlapping the sculptor mode over the edges of the rocks and stuff, so that they look like, as to a degree, coming out of the ground, as rocks tend to do. Um, yeah, so there's not much more I can tell you, really. I'll speed this up um, to get us on moved on, and you'll just see me put it together really quick. It's I, I've got no soundtrack for this. Maybe I should add in some incidental music, but I probably won't. Okay. So I really have to let this dry. It's got to dry properly. And I had to make sure I covered every last bit of polystyrene for reasons that I'll tell you in a bit. So, welcome to the end of my garage, full of stuff like garages are. And this is my kind of do whatever I feel like corner. So here it is, dry. I don't know how long this could be a week later. I can't remember. Um, I didn't know it'd wait that long. I was just off doing other stuff, probably being very heavy metal somewhere. Um, but the sculptor mode, I've left the sound on for this bit. The thing is, normally I have music playing in the background, so I can't leave the sound on. But this stuff, rock hard. That's sculptor mode. So the whole thing, pretty indestructible at this point. You don't want to drop it on your foot, let's put it that way. So you can see my sort of plastery rock features. I had some like big chunks of slate in my garden, and I just broke some pieces off and, like say, made molds out of liquid latex rubber. You just paint it on, let it dry, paint another layer, let it dry, so on and so forth, to about 6 layers in until you got a nice thick rubber mold, and then switch the sound off. And then you can just mold rocks, plaster rocks to your heart's content. So there you go.